Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of the Media Row podcast. I'm your host, Justin Miller. As always, thank you for tuning in to each and every show, each and every week. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff on our YouTube page. Make sure to follow us wherever you're getting your podcasts, if that be Apple Podcasts, whether that be Spotify. Make sure to rate, comment, like, all that good stuff. And then follow us all over social media. You can find us on Twitter at Media Row Pod. Definitely are going to want to make sure you're following us there because that's where you're going to see firsthand interviews with coaches and players. You're going to want to make sure you're following at Media Row Pod on Twitter before next Monday because that is when we have our Drake Men's Basketball Media Days. So you can see the firsthand player and coaches interviews uploaded right there to Media Row Pod on Twitter. So make sure to follow there. Follow me there as well at Justin_C Miller. Follow on TikTok at Justin Miller on Air for clips of the show and some other fun things we do there as well. Before we get into our interview, as always on Wednesdays with Coach Joe Woodley, we need to make sure to thank our sponsors and Stevens Automotive and Sales at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa, and Kelly's Little Nipper at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Make sure to use that keyword in Woodley at Kelly's Little Nipper because that first drink is on the house, and it's a perfect spot to go and watch the Drake Bulldogs this weekend now since they're on the road against San Diego, and we will have much more to break down on that game here in the next few shows. And when you go to Kelly's Little Nipper, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. Without further ado, let's just get right into it. Let's break down and recap a great weekend Drake had, break down this Drake-San Diego game, and have some fun with head coach Joe Woodley. Joe, thank you as always for coming on the show. I do really appreciate when you do this. I think it's great insight for not just me, but for the listeners, the fans. It's really cool that you're willing to do this when I know you have game film to go through and a really busy schedule to balance out.
No, Justin, I think I've said it before, but anytime we have an opportunity to talk about Drake football. Never going to shy away from it, and certainly want to promote what our young guys are doing over here. And I know you've always been a supporter of Drake, and so I'm going to support supporters of Drake. That's going to be things. He'll never have to worry about me. But I appreciate you doing it.
We ask the difficult questions here on the Media Row podcast. So I'm starting with this one. Did the defense get their donuts this week?
You know what? Because I just I think I told you off air. I did my interview with Michael before this, and I kind of shouldn't have forgotten about it, but I'm like, I don't know if Coach Cox did that yet. That's on him. He needs to. He better do that, or the boys are going to be on him. So that is hard to do. I mean, college football really doesn't matter what level. I mean, it is hard to do to shut a team out. And I told told the whole team in the team meeting last night, it's a group effort too, as far as offense, defense, special teams, a lot goes into it again, but the defense, carries a lot of that load. I think you got to be playing pretty good complementary football. Your special teams got to be sharp, and field position matters and all those things. And yeah, pretty rewarding to do it. I think, all defensive coaches, when they put their game plan together, I think that's always their intent, is to not let anybody get into the end zone. And when it happens, it's pretty rewarding, that's for sure. And I'm certainly proud of our players for accomplishing that. And of course, all the coaches, namely the defensive coaches that, like I said, carried a big part of that load. They were locked in and motivated from the past couple of weeks, and then having to sit on a bye week after we didn't play our best game defensively. It was nice to come back and do that.
I know when we have these conversations, you aren't a big stats guy. You don't look at the box scores. You like just watching the game film. But I noticed a stat regarding Drake, and it's regarding how they are one of the least penalized teams in the PFL. And I think out of all the stats in college football, That's a stat that best, I think, mirrors the coaching of the staff of the team. And just I wanted to get your thoughts on through 4 games, your team being so disciplined.
Well, that actually surprises me, Jess. I know for the most part we've been pretty good, and believe me, that's something I certainly emphasize with our guys. And Saturday was not our best effort, so I mean, hopefully that's an up to date statistic you saw. But yeah, it's certainly something I take great pride in because I think it's one of the things that you can truly control, and really it's the pre and post snap penalties I think that I try to drive home the most, and those are ones that are self-inflicted. And I just think there needs to be a certain amount of discipline with those types of things. And believe me, it's not always on the players either when it comes to those. The coaches have a lot to do with that as well, with how we're getting them prepared, and whether it be how we're doing our cadence, or who we're keying on defense, to put yourself in a position where you're not committing those kinds of penalties. But yeah, I think and again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but for the 6 years that I was head coach over at Graham, we were always the least penalized team in our league for 6 years, and then nationally we were always within the top 10, if not higher. And I even think a year ago when we won the national title, I think we were the least penalized team in the country. So I do believe that goes hand in hand. Now there's a fine line because the reality is I don't mind an aggressive penalty every once in a while, and we had I think we had two of them maybe Saturday. Like I think we had a hands to the face and a face mask, and they weren't real egregious. It's not like we were seeking out and doing it, but that's 32 two penalties for 30 yards right there. But other than that, I thought for the most part we were okay. With some things, like a delay of game we took, that one's on me. That's always on the coach. And now it didn't affect us because it just backed us up, when we were past the 50 on a punt anyway. Um, but yeah, it's one of the areas. I have a few areas that I go over with the team every week and talk about. That this is how we have our performance goals and our outcome goals, and if we continue to win our performance goals, we have four of them, and usually if you're winning three of the four, depending upon which three or four they are. But I think they're all pretty telling statistics of if you're going to have success or not, and that usually takes care of the outcome goals, which are the goals you guys that you want to reach as a team. And if you're handling those, the outcome's going to take care of itself.
I think we talked about this a little bit after the game on Saturday, but just now, since you've had a couple of days to watch film, kind of reassess what happened on Saturday, I thought the defensive unit was outstanding on both the defensive line, the secondary. Just anything stand out to you in these past few days that you've been able to break down a little more film?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Justin. I think you may have mentioned it Saturday, but yeah, the line of scrimmage, from the defensive perspective, was clearly won by Drake, and uh, I just think that allowed us to, number one, they had a hard time. They had a little bit of success with a couple runs early on. We just had to get maybe an alignment thing changed or whatever, but they had a hard time having any success on the ground. And I think when you do that, you make a team one dimensional. And it allowed us to somewhat tee off, for lack of a better way to put it, with our pass rush and our guys. I do think we've got a pretty good defensive line, and I think they were on full display Saturday, and the film confirmed it. I thought that was the case, and then you go back and watch it, and we were beating them with speed, we were beating them with power, and getting to that quarterback, making it uncomfortable. We saw a couple, the byproducts. We saw a couple interceptions, and I think a lot of it was because of the rush we were putting on and getting a quarterback to maybe throw off his spot, or maybe bumped his arm, or because that's what happened on two of them for sure, if not three. So all that stuff goes hand in hand, and yeah, they were certainly a problem for everybody. And the other thing I thought we did pretty well that we didn't do very well the last 2 weeks was tackle. There was maybe one one segment. It was really like one play where we had one really bad tackling exhibition, and other than that, I just don't remember a lot of those ones that are out in space where we were, flying past a guy or getting juked out or whatever. There just wasn't a lot of that going on. And if you're doing that, man, it sure gives you a chance to be successful on defense, not giving up those yards after catch, and so they were pretty tightened down on Saturday. I was certainly proud of them, and and Valpo did a lot of good things to some other opponents, and so that tells me we do have a chance to be pretty successful here on the defensive side of the ball.
Last week it was talking about how if the defense for Drake can get pressure on opposing quarterbacks, take advantage of those opportunities, you'll be set up in good positions. And then with the secondary, can they get takeaways because Valpo had struggled in the passing game? That happens as well. And just the strides you're seeing from that unit in particular, what are you seeing from the secondary unit?
Yeah, Mikey, again, I think I was on the show last week and I probably butchered his last name again. Mangialardi, he's going to be mad at me. I better get the correct pronunciation of that here pretty soon. He made his first start. We gave him an opportunity. He got in at the tail end of, or I shouldn't say the tail end. He played a good portion of the South Dakota game, and and I thought he had some pretty good results in that game, and he came into the Valpo game as a starter, and he did a lot of really good things, and he was a guy that was working with the ones all through spring ball, and then he went down with an injury, and it cost him quite a bit of time, and it's just taken him a long time to get back into it, and just real proud of Mikey, and he's one of the smarter football players I've ever been around, and I think sometimes he may not get credit for his because I do think he has some pretty good athletic ability. He's not big and long, and he's probably not going to impress you, just as he comes on the field. But what he brings is, I mean, he knows the defense inside and out. And that's a pretty good weapon to have, having a kind of a coach on the field, if you will, an extension of the coaching staff. He understands it. He understands formations. He understands splits. He understands where he needs to position himself to give him a chance to be successful. He almost had two interceptions. He made a hell of a play on a post route, and then he made another play on the pick down the sideline. So real happy for him, and a guy that's kind of waited his opportunity, and certainly making the most of it. And I just thought the other guys like Ben, probably didn't have one of his better games at South Dakota, and that was the case with a lot of guys. And usually the opponent has a lot to do with that. But I thought Ben, he gets a pick on the first series of the game. When we go 3-and-out on offense, don't have a very good punt, they come out on the +40 with the ball, and for us to come out, I was just hoping to get a stop, and for us to get an interception, get the ball right back. It just tells you Ben, he took the coaching, because we were on a lot of these guys, that they needed to improve, and I think we certainly saw that. And Kamani's he's been pretty darn steady all year. Just a real talented kid. And then out at the other corner spot, Garrison Cotty and Isaiah kind of went back and forth a little bit, and Gary's kind of getting a majority of the reps right now. But again, and we have a couple freshmen that are playing out there, and so it's competitive back there, and everybody knows it, and so they know they got to bring their best, because I think I want to say Kamani was basically the only returning starter in the secondary. So we had a hunch it was going to be competitive, and it is right now, and that's what makes practice a little bit more meaningful for those guys, because they're fighting for reps. And again, it just shows you how important the importance of practice, and then can you translate that into a game? And it's kind of fun to see how that's progressing.
I'm glad you brought up Mikey because he was a guy I wanted to talk about today. Because you look at that box score and you see the interception, one breakup, and 4 tackles. And if you were there in person, you would have thought he would have had 10 tackles, two interceptions just because he was all over the place. I thought his vision was great. I didn't know that was his first start because, like you said, he played quite a bit in South Dakota, and I thought he started that game. I need to get on those private jets with you and the team to go see these games live, coach.
We certainly didn't have a private jet to Vermont, I can assure you that. But no, we just gave him an opportunity in that game. Felt he earned it. Like I said, he was still kind of working back. He's been healthy, but I think that the injury he had may have set him back a little bit more than he thought, just because of how long he had to sit. And quite honestly, we thought it was a really bad injury when it happened. We thought we might lose him for the year, and got some good news there, and just kind of let everybody exhale a little bit. And yeah, he's starting to come along, and like I said, it's just those are the stories that are fun to follow. And of course, there's some other guys back there. Hayes Gibson's still competing. Hayes came in and did some good things, and as well as a couple other, like I said, some younger guys got a little bit of time. Because we were in control and we tried to get as many guys out there as we could. So that's always a positive too.
We saw Chase Spellman suit up for the first time in over a month for Drake as the starting quarterback on Saturday, but then in the second half saw true freshman and Logan Inagawa take over and have a really impressive second half for Drake with both his legs and his arm talent. So I guess the question is, are we going to see a midseason quarterback position battle?
I don't know if a position battle or a controversy. I don't know that I see it that way. I just see two really good football players. And Chase was, he was clearly the starter as we went into the year, and it's been fairly well documented. I know I've been tight-lipped a little bit, but had an injury, and we're just still working him back in. And I, on Saturday, it was really, I just felt we needed a little bit of a spark, and we just, Logan's had some success running the football, because when you run the quarterback, it sure stresses the defense, and we felt like that was something we needed to, maybe get doing a little bit more of, and we just weren't quite there confidence wise with Chase yet, but I feel like moving forward, we'll get to that point. And but I just think, yeah, I think most fans or whatever think, you should just have one quarterback. And yeah, it's an important position. I'm not sitting here trying to say that, but if you've got two really good, two good players, and let's see what they can do. Give them an opportunity. And like I said, I still got all the faith in Chase, and Logan's still young, he's still learning, but he sure plays with some poise, and he brings a skill set to the table that I think helps us, and we're just going to continue to work through that and see how it plays out.
So when you look at Chase's performance on Saturday, and I don't want this to come off sounding like I thought he played bad at all, because I said on Monday's show, right after the game, that I thought for a guy who this is his first time back in uniform for a month, played really well. Is it more you took him out of that first half because, like you said, you needed a spark? And is his play, was it just, it's been a month, he needed some reps, and now we'll see more of the true Chase Spellman this weekend against San Diego?
Yeah, yeah. I think you could kind of classify it that way. And like I said, I just didn't feel like, again, the bottom line is I just felt like Logan was going to give us an opportunity to run the ball a little bit, from the quarterback position, because he's got a comfort level with that, and we just weren't quite there with Chase yet, and it kind of shrinks some things that we can do. But like I said, I certainly anticipate moving forward. We're going to be able to unlock some of those things, but time will tell. We just don't know, and that's why you practice. And but yeah, again, a lot of faith in both of those guys. And again, Chase, and you mentioned it, he did do a lot of really good things, and it was good to see him back. Because he does have a presence about him, and that's certainly not lost on me.
And then when you look at the running back position, because we were talking about the quarterbacks, and you mentioned, hey, some people think you should only have one quarterback. You are lucky enough to have two really good quarterbacks right now. And then at the back position, after the performance from Herman on Saturday, looks like you have three really quality running backs right now, too. And so, what's the process like of just trying to balance out the carries between those threes and figure out who works best in what scenarios?
Yeah. No, I've usually lived in the world of having, running back by committee because it is such a long year, and all the running backs we've had, and shoot, Taj even got a couple runs at running back the last few games, and it's just such it's a brutal position. I mean, you're getting hit from 100 different angles. I don't know. Derrick Henry is kind of a freak of nature. You got, there's a handful of those guys out there, and then guys from the 90s. They just featured one guy, and I think you saw that in the NFL where, those NFL running backs were not getting drafted like they were when I was a kid, because they know they've got 2 or 3 good years in them, and that's it. So I would just prefer to have a healthy guy in there all the time, and we've got plenty of capable guys, and they're all unselfish. And I think each of them kind of bring their own their own element of what they can do. And Jaden's, he's kind of the old man. He's got a lot of snaps under his belt, and of course Woody. He makes so many dang tough plays, I think we take for granted at times, but a lot of third and shorts. He scored a touchdown on the goal line. He steps up in pass protection, and he's he's a captain of this football team. Everybody respects him, and we probably maybe should have got him a little more work because I thought he was kind of feeling some things Saturday, but the game kind of started to go one way, and we also wanted to play some other guys, and Nick just kind of made the most of an opportunity that he had in there and made a couple nice physical runs, and then we got to see his speed. I've been telling Coach Kemp, like, man, I just want to see him get out in the open because I know nobody's going to catch him because he's a legitimate track speed guy. He was a 10 800 meters guy in high school, and I know that's not blazing fast like it's fast, but I know it's not like what maybe some guys run at the power forward level, but he sure looked fast out there to me. And hopefully we get to see a little bit more of that here as we move along in the season.
When you analyze this running game, and we talked about this a little bit last week, and just there's a lot of room for growth with this running game because when you look at the yards per carry, it isn't to the point where I think you mentioned last week that you'd want to see it. Is that an offensive line issue? Is that a just what the defenses have been putting out there against you guys? Where do you start to analyze that and start to tweak a few things to make sure guys like Woodson and all the other running backs can start getting out in space?
Yeah, I think it's always a combination of things, and we talked about it in our staff meeting yesterday. I think Coach Griffith, our O line coach, I think he calls them one-aways. You're one away, and I think we had 13 of those in the first half, and 15 in the game. So obviously in the second half we ran the ball a little bit more effective because I shoot Justin, again I do get the stat sheet, just because I want to see, how we're stacking up at halftime. Just, usually I go to third down and, kind of look at that and then the rushing yards. And it wasn't a very good sight at halftime. I know that. I think we were in the 20s or 30s and rushing yards in the first half. And I think we finished the game with 150. So, having 120 in the second half, and if you're somewhat, let's say you just do half of that in the first half, that's a pretty darn good day running the football. So we just again, it's usually one guy away, and it's not necessarily always a lineman. It might be a back that didn't make the right read. It might be a tight end that missed a block. And we do some condensed formation with our receivers. Did they miss a block out on the perimeter? So So it's a combination of things. I know the O-line usually gets the blame for all those kinds of things, and believe me, there's enough there for them too. But this is a group, I mean, we didn't, Vandy is really our only returning starter on the offensive line. I know Heiss played a lot, Henry. I mean, those guys have all started in the past, but this is the fourth game of those guys all together, so. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a continuity piece, and I just think we'll continue to get better. And again, hats off to Valpo. Like, they did a lot of things to confuse us up front, and maybe did some things that we weren't anticipating, and maybe we put too much stock into what we thought they would do, and focused on that. And now all of a sudden they're getting some things thrown at them that we just didn't rep enough, and again, that comes back to us, the coaches. So it's not always on them, and as we get further into this league play, it's going to get tough to run the football, and you got to be creative because there's a lot of good defenses out there, and now that we're getting all this league film, you're paying attention and seeing the folks that are out there, and man, this is a hell of a league, especially this year. I think it's up for grabs. There's no doubt about it.
You face a really good rushing defense this weekend on the road against San Diego. They're second best in the PFL in yards allowed per game on the ground. Just what have you seen from them that maybe will give some struggles to the running game? And also, too, just the experiences Drake has had going up against some really talented defenses early on. What does that do confident wise in your staff and your players?
Yeah, I think that'll certainly help when you play against teams. Again, no disrespect, Upper Iowa. Now, again, I think they're 4-1 right now. But then you play, two of the upper crust in the FCS, at least the last several years with South Dakota and South Dakota State, some pretty elite talent, at the FCS level, and I certainly think that helped. And when I pop on San Diego's tape, I get a feel of those two games of the type of personnel that San Diego has. Just really impressed with them on really both sides of the football. But on the defensive side, you mentioned there again. I haven't seen the conference rankings or anything, but I can believe that. Just because of what I see with their personnel and just the way that they structure their defense. I think it's set up to really defend the run, and they want to dare you to throw the football, and they feel like they've got some pretty good players in the secondary where they can man you up and try and make you one dimensional that way. And at least again, it's Monday right now. I mean, that's kind of what the feel is, just kind of watching them. And now they also have the ability to get back in some too high looking structures and just kind of play ball too. So when you're playing against a team that talented, you've just got to get creative in the ways you can, maybe formation them or whatever, have some type of wrinkle in what you do, because you're not going to change your whole offense or anything like that, but they kind of put you to that test a little bit with how they play defense, and it's effective, and they've got the personnel to do it. Just awfully impressed with their front, and they've got a guy number 0 that, my gosh, I got to believe he's going to get an opportunity on Sundays, or somebody's going to at least take a look at him, and a couple good linebackers, and I believe one of the head coach's kid is he's an outside backer for him, I believe, and some good players in the secondary. I think a kid that was maybe all conference is one of their high safeties, and yeah, they're big and they're long, and they can all run. Like I said, when you just look at them on tape, it's like, man, these look like those Missouri Valley teams. Just with the way they get off the bus. For that I think they're going to be awfully impressive in pregame warm up.
So we talked about the confidence from having these past experiences for the defensive side of the ball, or for the offensive side of the ball. I want to shift to the defensive side because you will be going up against a really tough running back in Adam Kreider, who is one of the best in the PFL with San Diego. And you've faced some pretty good running backs in your first 4 games. especially with South Dakota. And just that experience right there, being able to see a running back like you did in South Dakota, now as you have a few weeks to analyze it, just the confidence that brings to your team and staff of we've seen running backs like this before. Now we just need to go out there and put a few things together.
Yeah, and again, that goes for the flip side. Their offensive line is pretty impressive looking. Two really big offensive tackles. I think their center, he's probably, he'd probably stack up with, about anybody we've seen to this point. Now he may just look small because of other guys are big. I don't know what his size is, but he is awfully athletic and he's mean and just the kind of guy you want. With he's the one touching the ball every play for them. Seems like a sharp guy, just like I said, just real athletic. And again, as a whole, just awfully impressed with their personnel on the offensive line. And again, maybe a couple guys that'll get an opportunity at the next level just because of the size that they have and the way they move. And yeah, and they've got all kinds of running backs. Yeah, the guy's name you said, I got jersey numbers 4, 5, and 24 and 45 are all the ones I've seen. And because I've watched their most recent three, because I think it's number 5 maybe that it has not. I haven't. I think you have to go back to either the Montana State, and I haven't gotten on that one yet. But they're all good. And that's what they're going to try and do. It's a lot of inside zone, and they've got some. Their quarterbacks or one of them is extremely athletic. They're kind of playing a 2 quarterback system. It looks like or splitting time. I guess I'm not positive. Um, what they're trying to do with all that, but one I think throws it much better than the other, and the other one throws it on the run and scares the hell out of you, just because of the way he escapes the pocket and presses the line of scrimmage and keeps his eyes downfield and throws some balls over the top of you if your eyes are in bad spots and they've got skill at wide receiver. They're really good players, on the perimeter and they block well. They're tough. Yeah, it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge on both sides of the football, but certainly got a lot of faith in our guys. We've got some tough kids, and I know they're looking forward to an opportunity to go out there and get on a plane and go see what we're made of against one of the better teams historically in this league, and Drake's had success against them the last couple of years, so they've kind of gotten that part out of the way. Again, doesn't mean it's just going to magically happen because it has happened. This is the 2025 team, and we got to find out what this team's made of. And to this point, I feel like we won that first conference game. That was certainly a goal we had to take care of first. Position ourselves for late November, and the next step is right now. It's crazy. It's still only our 5th game, and it's October, whatever it's going to be, the 12th or 11th out there, and it's crazy. And I think they're on their, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, it's going to be their 7th, right?
Yeah, yeah. They're 3-3 right now. So
They have played murderer's row of
yeah,
schedule. I mean, it is now they've had a couple more home games and that they've gotten a couple of them scholarship teams to come to their place, but they've been out to the East Coast twice now. That can't be easy. I feel sorry for ourselves enough just going from the middle of the country out there. And we I guess we go east once and west once, but Dayton I guess second one east, but yeah, that's a lot of travel and time zones, and I'm sure it's taken their toll on them. And oh, by the way, you mix in Montana State, one of
yeah,
the top teams in FCS that they go out there and have to play them. So yeah, and they're home. They're finally home. I'm sure obviously they're disappointed at what happened last week out at Marist, and you watch that game, and they had a lot of opportunities to win that football game, and it didn't work out, but they get back home, and I'm sure they're looking forward to just being able to be in their own beds and being on their own, their time zone, yeah, and they played St. Thomas, one of the best teams in the PFL too, and they were down 27. I think they were down 27-10 in that game, and made a furious rally and came back, and because St. Thomas was clearly in charge of that game, and San Diego came back and beat them on a last-second field goal. So obviously they're comfortable at home, and we got to go out there with a mindset that it's a business trip and we're going out there to play a football game and nothing else, and try and stay focused on that and can just continue to get better on our end.
A huge thank you to Joe Woodley, as always, for coming in on Wednesdays to chat with us. Really appreciate it. It's great in-depth conversations. And if you're not even a Drake Bulldog fan, just being able to hear him talk, I mean, that is, you hear Coach Joe Woodley, and it's all football. It is X's and O's, just great insight. If you're just a football fan, I think you will love these interviews. So, if you're a Cyclone, Hawkeye, Panther, regardless, hope you enjoy our conversations each and every Wednesday with Coach Joe Woodley. Now, before we wrap up, need to give a shout out to Stevens Automotive and Sales at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. 35 years of family owned and operated here in the state. They are like family to me. They'd be like family to you, as they just want to make sure to get you out there safe in your car and ready to go. Best place for any of your car needs. I promise you, you won't find a better place than over there at 5320 Northwest Beaver Drive in Johnston, Iowa. 35 years of family owned and operated here in the state. When you go to Stevens Automotive and Sales, make sure to let them know that Media Row sent you. So that will do it for today's show. We have a busy Friday as always, as Iowa takes on Wisconsin. We have Drake taking on San Diego, Iowa State against Colorado, and what feels already like a must-win game. Top 25 matchups all over the nation as well. Busy show on Friday, and hope you guys will tune in. We will see you next time on the Media Row Podcast.